it's James Glass. I have not uploaded a video to my YouTube channel in a million years, 5-6 years. And it's because I've left the building trades and I actually now I'm a professional photographer. My website's the same, jamesglass.org. So if you like pictures, go check them out. But I am building a 940 square foot tiny home on a single wide trailer frame. I bought a single wide trailer, I'm converting it. And there's some cool stuff that's happening here today, Kreg Jig stuff, where I kind of wanted to upload a few videos because it's so much fun. So, and I think I'm going to upload a few more videos too because I'm having a really great time. It's basically a new construction tiny home project on a trailer frame. It's a lot of fun. So, the Kreg Jig is an amazing tool. It is just fantastic. And it's a way of joining together materials, commonly plywood, but also MDF or OSB or even just solid wood, and 90-degree corners. It's very affordable, and it replaces all the complicated dovetail joints and biscuit joints and pins and dowels that you need a lot of tool and a lot of tools and basically a wood shop to be able to build cabinet boxes out of. And this thing does it all for about 50 bucks. And since a lot of what it does is behind the scenes and you can cover it cosmetically with some stuff I'm going to show you in this video, you will be amazed at the results. I am not sponsored by Kreg Jig. They have nothing to do with this. I just love this little product. I just think it's the best ever, and I wanted to show the world how cool a Kreg Jig is. So here's the project today. Of my 940 square foot tiny home, 68 square feet goes to the kitchen. When I bought this single wide trailer to convert it, it came with these oak-faced MDF particle board cabinets. The boxes are particle board, the face is oak. Well, it's just crap. The MDF just falls apart. Yeah, it's just garbage. So you really want a plywood box in your cabinet. And so here's a plywood box that I built using the Kreg Jig. And I have you can kind of ignore these 2x4s in the back. This 2x4 is not to join the edges together. This 2x4 is to support the weight of very heavy countertops. I've got these old doors out of a Holiday Inn here, these heavy solid core doors that are my counters. And I have a stainless steel 8-foot commercial sink that sits on top of this. And so these are there to help support it. This is an example of how a Kreg Jig works. I've taken the oak face off the crappy MDF boxes and I've joined it to some inexpensive 5-ply plywood. And you can see that it's incredibly neat, incredibly straight. On the other end, you can see the screw hole by which this is done. The Kreg Jig works by pulling one piece of material to the other material. Right here is the hole. I'm going to show you how to make this. It takes just seconds. And there's a screw that goes in at a special angle. And when you shoot it in, it pulls this piece to this piece. And it can be, like I said, it can be plywood, MDF, OSB. Plywood works best. It can be real wood. And here's how it works. You go buy your Kreg Jig. They're on Amazon, they're at Lowe's, they're at Home Depot, they're at hardware stores. Get your stock and set the jig up. I'll let you find the manufacturer instructions, but set the jig up for the material you're working with. We're working with 3/4 inch. Can you zoom in on that? Yeah. Set your material into the jig. This is just a scrap piece we're working with here. Clamp it down. This is an adjustable clamp for different thicknesses. Use the special drill bit that comes with the Kreg Jig. It's like a drill bit on a drill bit. It's got a little pilot hole here and this. This little collar is adjustable up and down the shaft. And it is determined by the material. I've set this for 3/4. Right there. Yeah. And so once you've clamped it in, just drill your hole. Now you'll notice there's 3 holes here. Their functionality is all the same. You can have 2 close together. You can have 2 farther apart. If you're doing an 8-foot piece of plywood or whatever, you're going to move the jig every 8 to 12 inches to get screws every 8 to 12 inches. So you can use any of these. The collar tells you when to stop so you don't over drill. And you've drilled your hole. Kreg sells specialty hardware that you need to use. 1.25" happens to be for 3/4 inch stock. It has a special head on it. It's flat and helps pull the 2 pieces of material together. They also happen to be square head. And you can use your impact. I've got this all set up, ready to go. So when you pop your pop your material out, you can screw it down. Here's another scrap piece. Now, when you go to screw this down, you might want it super flush. You might want a little back set. If you happen to want it flush, Kreg does sell a series of clamps that keeps this from moving around while you're trying to screw the two pieces together. And because I tend to glue and screw this together for extra strength, it does slide around a lot on the glue. There isn't much friction. So I don't use their special product because I do a lot of kind of specialty stuff. So what I'll do is literally just take a block, a scrap block like this one. I'll align where I want, and then I'll either clamp this down with a couple of C-clamps. Hey Oliver, my son's here today playing too. Or I'll just put a couple screws into this if this is not in an area where I'm going to be finishing the surface. And then that'll keep, when I go to screw this, it'll keep it nice and aligned. Or let's say sometimes with cabinets you might want a slight offset. You can put your block where you need it and then screw it together. So let's just pretend we want that offset. As long as it's 90 degrees, it doesn't matter. And you screw it together like that, and boom, you're done. And if you use some construction adhesive or some really high quality wood glue, this is an unbelievably strong 90-degree joint. It is just so awesome. And you can make shelving, bookcases, cubbies. If you turn the camera around here, on the doors, I got all these doors, like I said, for my kitchen cabinetry. I use the Kreg Jig to put all this together. And I put this little pin in here, so if you do have a cut, if you can't hide your screw hole, they make these little wooden dowels.
Do you have the package for those?
I do. That's a good idea. I'll get that. You can slide those in, sand them down, paint it. This is what a pack of 50 is like, $5 or $10 or something. And so that's just super awesome. The Kreg Jig is invaluable in joining 90 degree, and it replaces all the fancy stuff that you would need in a wood shop. You know, joiners and all that stuff. The only thing is you've got to have super straight cuts. So if you are cutting up your plywood on site, you don't have a panel saw, which I don't. I just used I went out and got a stock piece of aluminum, 1/4-inch aluminum. I clamp it down to the plywood, and I use my circular saw to make a perfectly straight cut. I make my own homemade panel saw. If you don't get the cuts at 90 degrees, your Kreg Jig will not work well. It is absolutely mandatory that all of your plywood cuts be perfectly square. But that's it. I mean, all you gotta do is make a square cut, and man, with a little glue and those screws, you can build a cabinet. This cabinet box took me, gosh, less than an hour to build. And I took that oak face front and salvaged what was just the crappiest, the crappiest crap. This was the back of the cabinet. It wasn't even MDF for the whole back. They used this, this isn't even Luan, it's just 1/8-inch particle board, which is stapled together, not even glued. So like, it took me less than a minute with a hammer and a block of wood to knock the cabinet apart. It's just a piece of crap. And how are the counters supposed to be supported by this? I mean, it's just very, very low quality stuff. So if you find yourself wanting to build brand new boxes for cabinets, or you find so you go to Restore and you find yourself a good set of like, oak face cabinets, but they got the crappy MDF boxes, no worries. Buy them, rip the oak off, and then build yourself a plywood box. So that's it for today's video. Kreg Jig, super awesome. Again, not sponsored by the Kreg Jig people. It's just a fantastic product. Thanks.